It is top of the hour at 7 p.m. And it's time for Stump the Chump. We're going to be starting just a second here as we're going live on Facebook. And I am Bob Noon, and I do adoptions. I'm going to be joined tonight by child adolescent psychotherapist Beth Hughes is going to be joining us. And Big Love, the miracle dog, will be joining us. For all who haven't seen in my office down here in Logan, that's where we're at today. It's actually Beth's play therapy office. This is just my little corner. I'm going to show you all of things where I lead my life. It's mainly airplanes and adoption law. Yep, a lot of airplanes. Oh. You know, and the question we ask, are you a member of a Native American tribe or eligible to be one? We have my cigar store Indian there. But anyway, hey, Amber and Bridget, we got some folks joining us. Yes. And right now, down the hall of West Virginia Power Play Therapy is Beth is in the scooter. Beth, you're kind of live, honey.
Oh, hey.
And she's in the scooter by which they train kids to take direction from parents. She's taking direction from Big Love. As we're going down the hall here, if you haven't been to West Virginia Power Play Therapy, we're passing all these offices. Beth, but you're getting ready to pass the playroom. I think we need to show them.
Okay.
So this is where some of the magic happens in here, in the playroom.
I'll be right there.
Okay, you need to come back, Beth. The puppet theater. We work with a lot of kids here. There's that stove in the corner. You wouldn't believe how many of our kids in southern West Virginia teach us how to make shake and bake and meth on that stove, which is something that's 6 years old when you can dry pot leaves in a play kitchen. Your parents have taught you well, huh? And anyway, Beth, let's sit down. Look at your screen. Make sure I have this turned the right way.
Oh.
Do I?
I don't know because I don't have you on my phone.
Well, just turn down the volume. Normally we are turned the other way.
Yes. Hi.
You know.
And my Bridget's on here. Woo, woo, woo.
No, we're turned the right way. There we go.
We are turned the right way.
Okay. So.
Hi, everybody.
So, welcome to another Thursday night of Stump the Chump.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of exciting because we've both been on the road. She's been in the play therapy bus a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on the road doing adoptions. We've both been on the road to Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
She's looking at me. If I drool, it's just me.
Okay, we're going to talk about healthy adoptions.
Healthy adoptions.
Yes. How do we do that? How do we do a healthy adoption?
I think everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I think with a healthy adoption, you start out, do you not, before the adoption?
Yes.
With expectations.
Yes.
We have so many, I'm not chastising anybody, but sometimes we have folks that have a kid in the home 1 week and they start saying, oh, we'd like to adopt you. You know, what does that do, Beth? I mean, in terms of expectations.
Yeah, so...
they say the A word.
You know, before you say the A word, you got to understand that you may be in a bit of a honeymoon. Bob, you remember when we were honeymooners?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember?
Yes.
That wasn't exactly the way it was going to turn out, though, was it?
No.
Not exactly.
That was a good honeymoon phase.
It was, and it lasted, gosh,
Years.
17 years or so. Mm-hmm. But what I mean by the honeymoon phase and saying the A word so quickly to a child, a lot of times children come to foster care and they really want a family. Bam. And as soon as they hear about adoption, they will walk up to just about anybody. They've asked me to adopt them before, and they've just met me. So there's a lot of things we got to understand about indiscriminate attachment. Mm-hmm. And so when a child who barely knows you says, I want you to adopt me, and you say, yes, I want to adopt you too, you're really feeding into that person that you meet on that blind date and they propose to you. Yep. And you say, oh, yeah, I want to get married too, instead of going, maybe not. Yep. So I think if you talk about beginnings, it's really important to know the child knows you. We have so much to establish in relationships. Trust being one of them. Yep. And but the child may just be so desperate for somebody to call mommy or daddy, and your heart bleeds, and you want to show joy in the child, and you want to let the child know that you hear them, but you also want to teach the child, well, you really need to get to know me before you say that, and so anyway, that's a biggie.
And that's up front at the beginning with laying the groundwork for adoption. By the way, with the mommy and daddy thing, some people get all brooched because they aren't called mommy and daddy right off the bat by the kids, or even sometimes after a couple months. You have to wait on the kid for that. Do you not?
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of things that when you're a new foster parent or you're a foster parent with a new child in your home, there's a lot that you need to learn about where they are in visitation with their biological parents, where we are in improvement periods or with termination of parental rights. Are we in an appeal period? So there's so many things that we need to know before we start saying the A word.
Okay. So now let's move forward to we're getting ready for adoption. That parents are terminated. And the appeal periods are either non-existent or they're over. So you are a parent getting ready to adopt, and sometimes we see things go off the rail at that point with the kids too.
Right.
So if you could address both of those.
Yeah, I'll tell you the number one thing I see is that many times foster and adoptive parents actually know nothing about the trauma that the child has endured. So they don't know anything about why this child acts this way in certain situations, or why the child seems to do really well at school, but maybe when they come home, they have a complete come apart.
Yeah.
It's like they're 3 or 4 different people. And what we do here at West Virginia Power Play Therapy is not just work with children who have dissociative behaviors like that, but we are also training other clinicians to know how to work with them. And in the education here, I always work with foster parents and adoptive parents, don't I?
So, yes, and that's real important. If you're a therapist, or your child's therapist rather, maybe your therapist too, but if your child's therapist is not inviting you into the discussion on what's happening with the child, then you're not part of that equation where knowledge is power. You need to know what's going on with your child. You don't have a transporter take him to the therapist and leave him off, for God's sake.
Well, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, I started training other therapists here in like 2012, 2013. And what I found was, I read a lot of psychological evaluations on children. And what I found was I had these deeply traumatized children who were diagnosed with behavioral diagnosis, right? And really no mention of their trauma. And as I would read the psychological evaluations, I'd often find that the tester did not know much about the child's trauma either. And that's bad enough, but the worst is when foster parents don't know what this child's been through. It can make a lot of false expectations. It can cause a lot of confusion and a lot of damage, just pure T damage. So when I'm involved in a case, or anybody in this office is involved in a case, the foster parents, adoptive parents, grandparents, everybody's going to be heavily, heavily, heavily involved in what we're teaching the child. Because where I see the biggest problems, when foster parents don't know, they expect that child to act their chronological age.
Yes.
Right? And they've had success raising their own children a lot of times, and they know what that age looks like, and they know what that child's supposed to be able to do at that age, But when they don't know the trauma, they can absolutely expect the child to do things beyond their social engagement development, beyond their cognitive development, emotional development. And so our job here is, number one, for you to know what happened to the kid. Number one. And I always tell my foster parents and adoptive parents that if no one else tells you, I will.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to want you at the MDTs. I'm going to want you involved. I want to be honest with them too, you know, because a lot of times they might think a child is eligible for adoption when they're not.
Or that it's off in the future. With not assigning faults. By the way, we have Wendy on there. I saw Braden. By the way, Braden.
We got a Pure Tea star watching us.
Yeah, Braden. If you're still on there, Braden. I watched Braden do a live concert at home tonight. He was very good. But anyway, back to
well, so the reason you might have wanted to know why I was riding the scooter down the
yeah.
hallway.
Why were you riding the scooter down the hallway?
Okay, well, that scooter is used to help foster parents, adoptive parents, and sometimes biological parents reteach the child, or in some children, we're teaching them for the first time how to trust an adult. So when I use that with a child, like I can ride the scooter by myself, right? But little kids need help with guiding because it's kind of tricky. You know, there's a lot of balance where we have to be pretty regulated to be able to do it. And so when a child wants to do it and they look to their parent or caregiver and says, I can't do it, and the parent caregiver says, I can help you. Okay, this major moment in therapy. Okay, and when the child allows them to help, it's building a foundation of trust. And so it's very well documented. It's empirically proven that this is, we got to do it. We got to have the parents in relationship with the child so they can understand the child, and the child can know, hey, you know what, I haven't been able to trust other adults in my life, but I'm learning how to trust, and I'm learning through you.
That's good. You know, she was just mentioning too about the child's maturity. If I was going to say, you know, some of our foster parents expect their kids to, I'm using air quotes here, because they've raised other children, they're expecting that foster child to act normal. And what Beth said about the developmental age or the developmental status of the child, some of our kids have been moved by the time they get to the adoptive home. They have been moved 5 or 6 times, a minimum of 4 often. And every move, and this is something that's been empirically shown, a move for a young kid sets them back 6 months. So when you see a kid that's been moved 4 times, it's not unusual for that 12-year-old to be more developmentally like a 10-year-old, you know. And you wonder, why in school are they so babyish, or why at home are they so needy, unlike my other kids when they were 12? It's because your kid was not moved 4 times between ages 7 and 10. So the more you understand about that child, probably the more empathetic you become.
Right.
And the greater, or the smoother the road, or at least the more knowledgeable the road towards adoption.
And the knowledge part is so powerful because, you know, here in my office, we deal almost exclusively with children who have breaks from reality and go into what we call dissociative behaviors. And so they may go in a state of fight, flight, or freeze when they're trauma triggered. And another big thing we do here is try to get the foster or adoptive parent or caregiver to understand the child is dissociating. So I'll have a little signal I'll teach the parent, you know, when we're working with the child. And when I see a child go in a dissociative state, I'm able to give the signal to the parent it's happening. And they know to pay a lot of attention. I'll give you an example. Let's say we have a perfectly potty-trained, well potty-trained, daytime and nighttime potty-trained 7-year-old. But certain things can happen, and especially when we tap on that old rejection and abandonment thing, like maybe baby sister's getting most of the attention right now. And so the 7-year-old brother might just go into this thing where he feels like he's in a state of self-preservation, fight, flight, or freeze. He might decide, you know, he may lose control of his bowels or his bladder. And the parent who doesn't understand that could be happening sees it as something personal against them.
A referendum on the parent. It has to do with my parenting or the child's love for me.
Right.
And that's
right. And so, and can actually, their reactions can actually make this worse and make the dissociative behaviors even last longer. So we have to teach a child who's, you know, adoption is nearing. We normally see these things get a little wonky.
Yeah.
They get a little wonky. And so we have to teach that parent, hey, wait a minute, we got to go back and recover. We're threatening this child in some way because of maybe the finalization of adoption is very scary to a child. Maybe
It's been
not
rejected over and over.
yes, and they're afraid it's going to happen again. So I'll just go ahead and make me rejectable, right? Helping the adopting parent understand that is just really, really important. And of course, what we need to do so much better on in our state of West Virginia is support adoptive families after the adoption.
That's
And I
I'd say
think we
that's
probably
almost
say that every week.
it's almost nil in this state.
we
don't
say
have
it
a
every week.
we don't have a big the way you get help post adoption in West Virginia usually is by a foster parent group. That's and they help each other, but we don't as a state do much in terms of the post adoption like we should. And there's actually supposed to be resources there, and I wish we did that more, but we just don't. By the way, our child here, show Big Love. Big Love is, hey, Big Love.
Big Love's been working hard today.
Yeah,
Did you see him kind of quit at 5 o'clock?
he did.
Like we were still working, and Big Love
Big
said,
Love.
"Hey, the union called, and I got to quit."
He only gives puppy eyes from 8:30 until 4:30, and then when his little puppy watch goes off, and that 8-hour period for Big Love, well, that's like 56 hours in dog hours,
So I was trying to see. I don't see any questions.
Hey, it's Elliot. We see there.
Hey.
And I saw Kelly, and I saw we got David, but I saw a couple other folks up there. It went by so quick, I didn't. And there's Wendy. Oh, by the way, here in play therapy land, Wendy Watts is a big deal. She's our LPC that's here.
LPC Alps.
Alps,
and
yeah.
certified trauma therapist.
And
next
soon-
week. And guess what we're doing next week?
What are we having a ceremony for Wendy?
No, we're ceremoniously filling out her RPT application, which is about 15 pages long.
So we're going to get another registered play therapist in West Virginia and up in the Ripley area, Stephanie Casto.
Stephanie Casto. We filled out her application to be submitted to the Association for Play Therapy. So we are really having a great February and March. So we're really tickled about both those gals have worked hard. You guys have no clue how hard it is to get that credential, and
It's only a few thousand hours.
it carries a lot of weight with it for the children everywhere, but we need it badly for children in West Virginia as well because there's so few registered play therapists in the state and not very many at all in the southern part of the state.
No.
So we're trying to, maybe, I don't know,
Yeah, and
what's
not
past quadruple, quintuple?
quintuplet. Yeah,
We're trying to make more of them.
we're trying to get more registered play therapists. And to be a registered play therapist, you first must be a licensed mental health professional.
Independently licensed.
Independently licensed.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you can't work for an agency, but you have the credentials that you could stand on your own as a mental health professional. That's required before you do that. Yeah. And so anyway, more on keeping our adoptions on track.
Another thing that we're going to talk about with healthy adoptions is it is vitally important that children know their story and they know the truth about their story, where they came from.
Yeah.
And they need to know it on the level that they can handle it at different ages. But from day one, they need to know, like if they're babies, when you get them, it's vitally important that they know their story and that you're very real with them about it, and teach them how to accept that knowledge about themselves and appreciate that knowledge about themselves. There's a whole lot of things we can do right, but being honest is going to be, I want the Department of Health and Human Resources in West Virginia to be honest with the foster care agency. And I want the foster care agency to be honest with the foster parents and me too.
Honesty is sometimes a real premium in the abuse and neglect cases. Nothing against some of the department folk, or they get the agencies often get their information from the department, but we're scared if we tell the foster parents the truth they won't want the kids. And really, I find that educated foster parents are so much more accepting than going, wow, what happened to that cute little 3-year-old I had? So
And another thing we want to do is we keep siblings together
biggie.
when it is at all possible. And I'll tell you, I have about 3 cases going on right now that are relatively new.
Speaking
And
of siblings, I just want to
is
shout
my
out
brother?
to Monica. Monica's kept siblings together.
Yes.
At all costs.
Monica Kinder. Oh, God bless you. But I'll tell you, I hear a lot of times in a new case, I'll say, oh, we had to separate the siblings because there was sexual behavior. They were sexualized toward one another, and well, that's what therapy's for. Like, we work through that, and a lot of times I'll hear very normal sex play that's been kind of classified by somebody as sex abuse, and it won't follow the criteria of sex abuse. And so for foster parents and adoptive parents to know the difference between sex play and sex trauma, I hate to embarrass everybody. Okay. But all of us...
She loves talking sex. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
That was weird. All of us...
All of us. Go ahead.
At some point in our human development...
Yes.
Experiment in sexual play.
Yep.
And the biggest time for that, for the peak sexual curiosity of children before puberty, you know what it is?
When?
Between 3 and 6.
Wow. So, if you know this and you're a parent, you don't get freaked out. But when you're also dealing with foster kids, some of which have been sexualized way in advance of that, then that period seems a little abnormal for them. I mean,
well, they get, I will tell you this, because I work, almost all of the kiddos I work with have parents who have battled with drug addiction. And the children were little children in that home for a long time before we got them to some safety and stability and consistency. So what happens when people are zonked out, whatever, with their drugs, what happens is they lose the ability to set healthy boundaries for their children. So they may be having sex right in front of them. Well, so if you're a little kid and people are having sex in front of you, guess what? That pushes the fast forward button on your sexual development. And it doesn't mean that we should vilify those children, or we should try to say they can't be around other children. Yes, they need to be around other children in homes only where, boy, we got 4 eyes on them and we're watching them and we're setting the healthy boundaries. And when they might act up sexually, that we don't humiliate them, embarrass them, vilify them. We teach them. We teach them how to handle these urges, these feelings, and how they can be safe and how they can help other people be safe as well. I get really upset when I hear some of these behaviors, and I'm like, that is not a sexualized, aggressive behavior. That may be sex play, curiosity, maybe modeling, how kids love to play house.
And not a situation where we're talking about perpetrator and victim.
No.
When that happens, you're looking at the age differences, you're looking at the threats,
a lot of things, yes.
the secrets in between the actors, and so it's a different situation.
But, it's bad enough to lose your parents. That's bad. But to lose your siblings as well is, especially we can work on things and help them stay together safely. Want everybody to be safe. Everybody. Another thing you need to know about the child that's in your home is what they have experienced. And I mean sexually as well.
Yeah.
So my foster parents can tell you that Miss Beth lets them know everything I know, and so we can all work together. In keeping siblings together, we can take the mystery out of it. It really alleviates the kids too when we can start talking about it. And helping them understand, hey, that's not cool. Not cool to do that. We're going to have to do it this way. And really teach children. Because we all had to be taught.
Yeah.
You know that? You think about that. Even those of us who are untraumatized sexually, we all had to be taught what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, right? We all have to be taught that. And our foster children are going to be absolutely no different in that.
Yeah. I was wondering, when you were saying the kids should know age appropriately about their history, what will be an example of, telling somebody about their adoptive past when they're 4-year-olds versus, say, 6 or 7? How do
You mean like what? Like, give me an example of something that we would have to tell the child about why they were in foster care and ultimately adopted?
Yeah.
Well, you want to go with our big number one, drug addiction?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
That would be.
hang on. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'm going to show you something. How we do that. Okay.
Okay.
Come back.
Oh, okay. While she's gone, we're in the playroom here, and for those of you who just tuned in, that's the stove where kids in southern West Virginia teach Miss Beth how to dry pot leaves in the oven. Little shake and bake has been done on that stove. It's amazing. Oh, okay. There
Well,
we
since
go.
I'm a play therapist and I use toys, we have toys about drugs as well.
Okay.
And so let's say I've had 3-year-olds who we've had to kind of talk about how mommy and daddy act different when they take, and I'll call it the bad medicine. Okay, so I'll have different things that we use in the sand tray to help kids
Cigarettes. Yeah.
tell me what they may have seen and what, I think this was Bob's.
Oh, my.
Pretty sure it was.
Natty
And,
light beer can there.
So just different things to help children. And on here it says witch's potion, okay? So it just gives children a way to tell us like what they've seen without using the words, because a lot of times they don't know what that is. And so if a child does not use the word drug or drugs, I don't use it either.
So bad medicine.
Bad medicine. I use medicine. And we talk about, with little ones, how medicine can help us when we're sick. And maybe the child will tell me, oh, I had an earache, and then we put drops in my ear, and my ear felt better. And I said, well, that's good medicine. So I introduce the word medicine if they don't know it. But usually they do, because most of these children have had medicine. And so I will teach a 3-year-old that the bad medicine makes mommy or daddy not think straight. Because if they were thinking straight, they would stop taking that bad medicine and want to get you back as soon as possible. But sometimes a bad medicine, they can't stop it because it makes them really, really sick to stop it. And that usually resonates with children who have lived in drug-addicted homes. And so that's just one way in play therapy that we help children have the tools to talk about what they've been through. And boy, it's a load off for kids, because I wonder why they would take their head and beat it up against the wall, or be out in the dark trying to take the TV apart, or whatever the parent, they may have seen the parent do. Or why all those other people were always at our house and they all acted funny like mommy and daddy.
After midnight.
Hear that a lot. And for the child to know, because a lot of times they're told, little bitty children, think about this, are told it's their fault that mommy or daddy does the drugs. Or it's their fault because we all had to be separated from one another because you told on me. You told them about what I was doing.
Yeah.
And so this kind of helps the child go, wow, it's not my fault. They chose to do that, and they choose to continue doing that if they're still doing that.
Yeah.
It's also a big change for a child whose parent has recovered from addiction or is recovering from addiction, and they've worked hard to regain custody of their children. And sometimes the children are very afraid to go back. And so we'll do a lot of work here in helping the child understand, look, mommy did all of this work, and mommy's got a job now, and mommy's got a house, and we'll see pictures of the house and where mommy's fixed the room up. And because it takes sometimes a lot of work to get the child to even speak to the parent. And the parent, in the meantime, thinks, well, hey, I'm clean and sober, and I have been for a year.
That should be good enough.
So I bet my kid's going to be so, and not always the kid is not always excited to hear that news. Because while you've been getting clean and sober, and it took you a year, your child has been attaching to someone else, and they are wanting to stay with that person. So we have a lot. I know Elliot was watching earlier, but we have a lot of parents who go through that. And that's another reason I think for healthy adoptions and for anything dealing with children in addiction. If someone is doing their work in rehab, or and they've come away and they're looking like they're going to do this, that child needs to be part of that therapy with that parent.
Yeah.
They need to see that process as well.
Yeah, and that's one thing we've discovered with some family treatment courts, is that often the family treatment is treatment of the parent and not involving the child. So it's kind of spooky if you're a guardian ad litem and you want to see a family reunified, but the mantra that you're looking at as guardian is best interest of the child. And sometimes a 6-year-old child that's been away for 2 years is a whole different ball game than a 12-year-old that's been away for 2 years. And developmentally, you need to be addressing the therapist with that, and the parent's therapist as well as the child's therapist on the reunification. What else can you think of here? Because I haven't been watching the clock, but we've eaten up our half hour.
We've had our 30 minutes of fame on a Thursday night yet again. And,
Yet again.
Again, we're easy to reach. I'm behind on some phone calls this week because it's been a little crazy, and I owe some phone calls to Head Start teachers and elementary school principals, and I promise I'm going to get to you tomorrow when I have a minute to breathe. But we've been just working really hard here. I'm Beth Hughes, and you can reach me at beth@bethhughes.org. And this is my husband, Bob Noon.
And you can reach me at the Ritchie County Courthouse tomorrow, or bob@bobnoon.com. But anyway, you leave a question for us. We usually go through these after we've wore you out for a half hour. Then we go back and catch the questions.
And sometimes they just call us, which is good too, because we love to hear from you.
Yeah, and our phone numbers are on that website, bethhughes.org or bobnoon.com. Doesn't cost you anything to talk to us. She's more expensive than me, but if you're just talking. Unless there's a court order, the meter's not running.
Okay, then.
Thank you
guys
all.
Have a great Thursday
Thank
night.
you for being the foster parents and caregivers that you are. We sure appreciate what you do for our
Very
kids.
much.
And we love you, and see you next week.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Say goodbye, Big Love. Hold on. Say goodbye, Big Love. Okay, he's under the table. He said goodbye. Love y'all. Take care.